a lot of people don't go off and do businesses because I went from earning about $500,000 a year to zero when I
Mm,
started my business.
mm,
And people are afraid to do that. People won't do that, especially in that field. I mean, that's so uncomfortable. It's horrible. Would I
mhm.
ever do it again? Welcome to the Spinoso Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Spinoso. My expertise is in growing and scaling all types of medical businesses to seven, eight, and nine figures. And I'm not telling you you should do this. I'm just telling you what worked for me, and hopefully that helps you as well. And we got a new face in the studio today. I could barely afford him, so we're glad that
Mm.
he's here today. He's
I'm
not
subbing for
replacing.
Amanda.
Yeah, subbing for Amanda. Don't worry, Amanda's not being replaced. My co-host is much uglier than
Much
Amanda,
uglier.
a
Most people are much uglier than Amanda.
ex-pastor,
Yeah.
the
No jokes.
great author, an amazing friend and business owner, as well as the co-host of probably
Yeah.
one of the greatest business shows of all time that we talk about always, the MFCEO Project podcast, and
Yeah.
host of his own podcast, the Vaughn Kohler We Love Wieners podcast.
That's
What's it
right.
called?
Which technically, I guess, is classified as spiritual and educational.
Yeah.
Normally, I don't have to put the little uh explicit content tag on my episodes, but the episode you and I just did, I'm gonna have to put that explicit tag on that
Sorry.
because of the F bombs, but that's all right.
Sorry to all your
I don't
followers.
censor my I don't censor my
Sorry to all
my
your
guests.
followers on that one.
So I was thinking of doing something that I'm pretty sure you're gonna mock and vilify.
Here we
And
go.
you're a doctor.
Yes.
Um, in spite of the fact that a
You
lot of
want to pull
people
that forward real quick?
what's that?
The screen really
Oh
quick.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Just to
okay,
make
good.
sure.
So Alex can see himself.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I look good
Oh
on
yeah,
camera.
okay, good.
Yeah.
Don't edit that out.
Okay.
A lot of people in your space, in our space, entrepreneurship,
Okay.
kind of mock higher education.
Mm.
But I personally have benefited greatly from both my undergraduate and my master's degrees
Yeah.
in theology and writing. And I thought in the next couple of years, I mean, it's fair to say that I'll probably be a I don't know, multimillionaire in the next
Mhm.
couple of years, right?
Yeah.
So I've decided, I live in a college town. I've decided that I would like to be like Dr. Alex Spinoso and also have a doctorate. And there is a doctorate called Leadership Communication at Kent State University. I've decided I'm going to do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I am.
How long is that program?
Well, it's like, the traditional one's probably 4 to 7 years, but seeing as how I'll be a multimillionaire, and I'll be able to devote a lot of time to it and just eat grapes and have people fan me while I
Yeah.
take the classes. But I specifically wanted to go more in depth. I'm really into the whole interpersonal communication stuff. Like
Uh-huh.
I really wanted to go in depth about leadership communication as it relates to building rapport with your team, how to motivate people, how to elevate their performance in that way. So I think I'm going to do that.
So it's actually going to be useful versus
Yeah. No, I think it would be as opposed to like women's studies or
or
something
like
like
no
that.
PhD, like those PhDs who talk about I'm defending my dissertation on, you know, the butthole monkeys of the South Amazon and
Yeah,
how
right.
they touch each other's buttholes. Like people always have the worst.
I don't know.
Like,
That's a
does
scintillating
anybody want to come
dissertation. I
and
read
watch
that.
me defend my dissertation?
Right.
Like, no, nobody wants to come
Right.
and watch what you like. You defend your piece of paper that you studied for 2.5 years to pretend like
No.
you're a doctor.
Like to advance knowledge, quote
Yeah.
unquote. Yeah, you went to an Ivy League school
Yeah, I
though,
did.
right?
I did.
So, I mean, this is a little bit of a stereotype.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get in trouble with it for this, but I mean, were the girls cute?
Oh God, I don't know. Like there were some cute girls.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it wasn't a Florida State or
yeah,
Stanford or
yeah.
Notre Dame or
I mean, that's a total
Texas A&M
stereotype,
or
and
I can
somebody's
name
gonna pull this
I can
off.
name a million different
Yeah,
schools,
yeah,
but yeah, no, they.
yeah.
I mean, they were not.
But I mean,
I would say they were all tens out of tens.
during that time from the pool of Dartmouth students,
No,
and not. Oh, you didn't.
no,
Like, was there a local community college?
yeah, no, there wasn't. There was no, there wasn't. There was actually two all girls schools that were close by, but honestly, I was an athlete and I played two college sports. So with between rugby and soccer, like I did not have any time because
Oh
they were
wow.
opposite really opposite training schedules or
Uh-huh.
opposite seasons, and then the training schedules did overlap each other as well. So it
Okay.
was either morning practice, then class, and then afternoon practice, and then by that time I would do homework and be fucking gassed,
Okay.
or it was games and we're in season and traveling and stuff like that. So there wasn't really enough. There wasn't really a lot of time
Huh.
for
Yeah,
girls
you
and
had a lot
crap
going
like that.
on.
I was focused on like doing all my pre-med courses and
Yeah.
just like did not have time. And I
Yeah.
wasn't really like looking or whatever. I had a girlfriend from home for the first 2
Oh,
years, and
nice.
then
That was clear
um
across the
yeah,
country
clear
though,
across the
right?
country,
Wow.
and then like I met my other girlfriend in our MCAT class like almost at the end of my graduation.
Didn't you date a girl who was like the same height as Cameron Brink?
Yeah, yeah, she is six
Crazy.
two or 6'3". She
That's
was a volleyball
crazy.
player.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's and
At a
you are what?
towering
You are
five
what
five.
again?
At a
Yeah.
towering 5'5", that was
Yeah.
a huge difference,
Yeah.
but it wasn't terrible.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
Mason over there
crazy.
laughing.
Okay, so there's one more thing I want to banter about before I take over this Alex Spinoso episode. Um, Something I noticed about your neighborhood that is a little bit of a mystery, but also fascinating to me.
Mm,
So, by the way, I read a book called Visual Intelligence. So I am a master at observation now.
mm,
Like I
okay,
have 3 PhDs in observation.
okay.
But
Well, hope you don't go blind because that book would be useless.
that's true. Um, so, um, first, I noticed that the homes in your area are very nice and not at all what I would call dated, right? So they seem like most of them have been built relatively recently.
Yeah,
And yet,
last 20 years, this neighborhood's about 20 years old.
is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's that because I was like, I feel like the trees do not match the homes here because I feel like the homes look new, but the trees look ancient, like they
Mhm.
look really big. So you're saying that they didn't like transplant these trees fully grown into the,
No, I think
I
this
mean,
neighborhood, when they developed it, actually was like heavily forested.
really?
So behind our neighborhood
So
between
they built around the trees.
yeah, so well, to a
Oh,
degree. I don't think obviously the trees where they are just like were
yeah.
just in the front yard of all these homes. But I think they transplanted them and just moved them around the neighborhood to a certain degree because if you look at the neighborhood or right behind this big neighborhood is a
Yeah.
huge ravine and it's like heavily forested. So, and the trails, if you walk on some of the trails in the neighborhood, again, still like heavily forested areas. You can see where they didn't actually clear any of the trees. And then some of the like I'm in the medium neighborhood. There's like a little bit of a less expensive neighborhood, the medium neighborhood, and then there's a really expensive neighborhood where
Mm,
the houses start at like $3 or $4 million each, and they go up to like 10, 12.
mhm.
That neighborhood, like they did even less deforestation. Deforestation, is that even a
That's a
fucking
hard word to
word?
say.
That is a very
Yeah.
hard word. But their whole backyards are just like full forests and tree like they left it all. It's really awesome because the houses are super private because of that. But
Huh.
I think a lot of the trees here were just like moved. So they had them, they like ripped them up, and they usually transplant a lot of those trees that are bigger and older.
Huh.
They don't destroy a lot of them around here. They'll
Well,
just
that
transplant
that
them.
solves the mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was number 2. So number 1, yeah, the neighborhood's like 25, 30 years old
Hmm.
because really a lot of our neighbors, their kids are most of them are either in their junior, senior year of high school or just went to college, and
Mhm.
they've all been here. Like all of the people in the neighborhood except for like 2 on our block have been here for the past 20 years.
Huh.
And so that's how old the houses are here.
That's amazing. Well, so
Mhm.
what you're saying is that visual intelligence didn't serve me at all.
Mm-mm.
Total
Looks can be totally
loser
deceiving.
of a book.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Good job.
uh, I keep on running into people who are at different ages and different life situations, and they're asking the same question. Now, mostly young people are
Yeah.
asking this, but I do think that
Is
this
that your
is,
way of saying people ask me?
yeah,
You know?
people ask me all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah,
Vaughn,
yeah.
when are you going to start a course?
Yeah. 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 Nobody fucking asks you.
Yeah,
Don't
no.
lie.
But
But
this question I do get
people
from a
go to
lot of
you.
people.
People go to you. I see. I
Yes.
see. I know.
And it's funny because it's mostly young, like 20 age or, 20 somethings. But it's funny how many people, you know, of all ages seem to suffer from this sometimes. And that is they don't know what the heck they want to do with their life. Or they, they just don't know what to do. They'll say like, well, I'm if I could find what I'm interested in, or if, but I just can't make a decision. I'm not, you know. And what I usually tell them is I would say, well, I always say the who comes before the what, right? So you got to figure out who you are before you figure out what you want to do. And so one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and I feel like identity comes before achievement, like in the sense of people with a strong sense of who they are, their purpose, their guiding core values. I feel like those are the people that do monster things, in my opinion. Now, it's not always neat and tidy like that. Sometimes, you're doing it at the same time. Like you're achieving and you're becoming who you're meant to be at the same time. But particularly as it relates to entrepreneurship and being a leader of a company, I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole idea of identity, authenticity, how you embrace who you are, how you kind of figure out how you're going to operate in the world. And so I guess the first question that I would ask you is, as you think about your role as the CEO of Genesis and all these other companies, um, do you have a firm sense of who you are as a person,
Yeah.
and and how did you get that?
My parents.
Okay, so
So we go
yeah.
back to when I was younger, and my parents were the ones who were always, speaking life into me. School's your job. You do the best that you can at everything. And that wasn't like you do the best that you can, and if you fail, well, that's just who you are. It was like, no, you're gonna push and you're gonna get better. You're a man of your word. You finish things that you started. You finish like this season on this team because that's what you do. You are loyal and true to your word, etc. And so that was driven into me at a young age. And I went to a Jesuit high school, all
Mhm,
boys high school,
mhm,
and they had something that you're going on soon. They had like a silent retreat, or they had a
mm,
retreat. It was called
mhm,
Kairos. And you take your small class of, it's like 20 or 30 people, and you go out to the cabins that the school would rent, and you talk about God, and you open letters from your parents and like your family, and it's like a bunch of, I guess, kind of finding yourself sort
mhm,
of stuff.
mhm,
And it's supposed to be this huge transformation. You go on a during that 3 or 4 hour silent retreat where you go off into the woods. You don't talk to anybody. You just are in tune, you're trying to be in tune with your thoughts and stuff, which I think is a uh, great practice no matter what age you are, to just
mhm,
get into yourself and at the same time help control your thoughts and feelings. But afterwards, I came back, and everybody was telling their parents, like, oh, it was so life changing. And I found myself, and I learned about who I was and stuff.
mhm,
And this was, I think, like sophomore year, freshman or sophomore
mhm,
year of high school. This happens every year. And it still has, still to this day, which I think is really great as the
mhm.
program. And my parents, they tell me the story because I don't really remember it, but my parents say, "Oh man, all these kids are having amazing things. Like, Alex, what did you think? Like, how did you feel?" And I was like, "Well, food was good."
That sounds like you.
Because by that time, like, I already, like, kinda I already knew who I
You already
was.
had a
Like, I
sense of
already
it.
had a sense of who I
Yeah.
was. It was already driven into me. I already had that confidence as a kid because my parents drove it into me, because I was always the smallest guy, and I had to, because I always had to outwork everybody when it came to
Mhm,
certain things,
mhm,
especially in the athletic world, which was my entire identity. But that's just part of who I was growing up, is having my parents pour that into me. So as
mhm,
I grew up, my attitude has had to change, especially in the business world, because as you can't be all fire and brimstone and like it's my way or the highway and all that shit that I was as a kid, and all that fuck you. Like, you don't, because you got to have employees, and you got to have some emotional intelligence that not all employees respond really well to that.
yeah.
And my business partner and I were talking about this the other day with coaching kids or coaching other people. It's the same as with your employees, where one kid, you could slap him around, hit his helmet, be like, "Get the fuck up. What the fuck's wrong with you? Let's go. You're not doing what you need to be doing." And the kid will go out and fucking, score 3 touchdowns,
Right.
or, slam dunk, or hit 3 homers in the game. And then you do that to another kid, and that kid just like crawls into himself and
Right.
you'll never get that kid back again. And it's the same with staff and employees and things like that. So I've always, through building all this, had a sense of who I was, where I come from. I remember that and I still use that to this day, but it's started to change more as I have more and more employees and need to speak differently to different employees and have that emotional intelligence
Mhm.
in it. I think that's part of growth aspect as well.
So a couple things. First, I want to say that kairos is a great name for something because I studied Greek in seminary, and I also my undergraduate was in rhetoric, the art of persuasion. And the word kairos is used by a lot of the ancient rhetoricians and the masters of persuasion, and it means kind of like perfect or divine timing. And so there are certain speeches over the course of the history of the world that are said by the experts as having this huge kairotic element, which sounds like erotic, by the way, but kairotic element. So, like Winston Churchill, his country is basically dying on the vine. They're getting beaten up by the Nazis, and he delivers this amazing speech of our finest hour, and it has this perfect moment feel to it. And I've always thought, like, both as a former pastor and somebody that both of us like to do, keynote speeches, and it's kind of the dream to have a situation where the circumstances demand that somebody steps up and delivers this really timely, perfect message. And I feel like you've already done that to some extent at some of these BTL conferences that you've gone to. But anyway, all is to say that I love that term, that kairos. Maybe we need to work that in somehow.
I didn't know the history of that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
really
it's a
cool.
great, it's a great thing. But a couple things you said that I thought was interesting. First, you said your parents poured into you. Secondly, you said that you know they said you are a man of your word. That's how we operate in our family culture. And then you talked about like school was work or school was your job,
Yeah.
something like that. So very early on, yes, your parents are providing um, very, very basic core values for life. Okay. So the first one being your son, we love you, you have value, we're going to pour life into you, we believe in your potential. Second one being um, your word is your bond. There's an ethical way that you conduct yourself, and then the third one being like your effort, right? Your school is your job. Um, what would you tell somebody who is either very young or maybe 40, 50, but just has never had that kind of formation in their life? How do you go find it?
I think you just start to practice it. You see how other people are practicing that, and I'm gonna say something, and I know people will be like, "Oh, toxic masculinity bullshit." But I think whether you're a man or a woman, my sister was taught the same fucking way.
Mhm.
Like, you stand up when you shake people's hands. You look
Right.
at them in the eye. There's this whole gentle parenting now where if the kid like shies away, they're like, allow the kid to be shy. Fuck no. Like,
Mhm.
if people are trying to touch him or kiss him or whatever, yeah, like that's
Yeah.
fucking weird. But if you're meeting somebody, you shake their hand. "Hello, how are you?" Or my
Right.
kids, "Hola,"
Yeah, yeah,
sort of
yeah.
thing. You introduce yourself. You tell them who you are. It doesn't mean you have to keep talking to them if you feel uncomfortable or whatever,
Right.
but you act like a man or act like a woman that's strong and, presents a united front, against whoever, whatever
Mhm.
evil or whatever, but, I digress with that, but you still gotta have those basic core values, those basic things. And you may be an introvert like I am. That doesn't mean when you shake hands, you have to talk to them at all.
Mhm.
But there are some regular decency things. Opening the door for other people, men
Mhm.
or women, like
Mhm.
allowing people to go first, holding the door open. I mean, allowing everybody to sit before you, pulling out people's chairs,
Mhm.
saying please, saying thank
Mhm.
you. I tell that to my kids all the time. Please, thank you. Gracias.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you say? It's those sort of things.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is when people don't have this full experience of being shaped by their parents or nobody really poured into them in their lives, what I hear you saying is, hey, at least just start with the basic forms of decency that we all know
Yeah.
and just do those little
Yeah.
things.
Well, I think
Eh,
that's a fucking excuse. Like, oh, I didn't get my parent. I had a bad childhood. Blah blah blah. My dad, his dad, left when he was 16. like left the
Mm.
family. My dad
Mm.
put his 4 sisters through school, 3 sisters. There's 4 of them. 3 sisters through school, helped the family, helped his mom, 4 women in the house. Did all that, still learned all those good manners, still learned core
Yeah.
values, still learned, standing up, shaking hands, taught me how to do that. So just because you have a shitty history doesn't mean that you can blame your future on your past.
That's a really good point. In fact, the reality is most of I don't know about most, but a lot of the people that I know who are amazing husbands, amazing dads, amazing men had crappy role models
Oh
and
yeah.
just said like, I don't want to be my dad or I
Yeah.
don't want to be my mom.
Yeah.
And so kind of just took the responsibility to
Yeah.
do it.
Well, I guess it's the way you look at it as well. They're not really a crappy role model if they still taught you all the things you shouldn't fucking do. Because
That's
when you
true.
go to business, you
That's
realize
true.
that all the things you shouldn't do are worth 10 times, 100 times more than all the things you should do.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever talked about this. In your podcast. I feel like you have, but I also feel like it's worth repeating. In the entrepreneur space, there is this obsession, this I would almost say borderline fetish with talking about how dysfunctional you were growing up, as if that's like required to be a really great, entrepreneur or a really great, quote unquote baller. You have a different take on this. And your take is basically like, I actually had a really good childhood. And it was because of that, it was actually harder for me to get where I'm at. Do you remember us
Yeah.
talking about that?
Yeah, I know. And specifically, it's because, you know, my career and my job and my degree when I graduated, I made it, quote unquote, with everybody. Like, I was a doctor. I finished all of my schooling, higher education. I have an MBA in healthcare management. I won the lottery, the genetic lottery, the family lottery, the school lottery. And I got to the end and I won. And all my colleagues, they still, for the most part, work for other people. They work in hospitals and they work in primary care offices and urgent cares and ERs and whatever. And they won. They're doctors.
Mhm.
That's it. There's nothing beyond that. And I think it's the same thing where once you've done that and you've achieved it, nobody around you wants anything more.
Mm.
Nobody. And I say nobody, it's like fucking nobody.
Mm.
Even when I go to entrepreneur groups, there aren't a lot of doctors, very little to none. There might be
Mhm.
a lot more nurse practitioners and other mid levels that maybe don't have the earning potential that I have in my career specifically as an MD. But like my earning potential is way higher. So a lot of people don't go off and do businesses because I went from earning about $500,000 a year to 0 when I
Mm.
started my business.
Mm.
And people are afraid to do that. People won't do that, especially in that field. I mean, that's so uncomfortable. It's horrible. Would I
Mhm.
ever do it again? I have no fucking idea. I don't
Yeah.
think I would. It's fucking horrible. You know?
Right.
All the stress and all the pain and all the, like, can't shit right because my stomach is in knots all the freaking
Right.
time, can't
Right. Right.
sleep, can't breathe, you know, the anxiety of it is crushing, but I had won, and
Mhm.
so I think it's different when it comes to, like, that field
Yeah.
in that you have won, so it was more difficult to go back into. But I think it's the same with people who, the cool jock that, graduated high school and he was the killer in high school, or those people that won a national we won national championship in rugby and soccer, and I still see them posting on Facebook about that national championship.
Mm.
Like, that was fucking 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, who the fuck cares? Nobody cares. The only person that cares is you. And then you wanna put something on there like, "Oh, we're so awesome because I did this one thing 20 years ago."
Mhm.
Like, everyone forgot but you, bro.
Mhm.
Everyone fucking forgot.
Mhm.
And so, I don't go to class reunions and I don't really have a lot of friends from high school. I don't have a lot of friends from med school. I have one from med
Mhm.
school. I don't have a lot of friends from like my business school or anything like that because I just keep looking forward,
Yeah.
and people might say that's shallow and it's pedantic and it's whatever, but
Well, it's
okay.
only shallow if I mean, people make choices, right? So
Yeah.
if you're looking forward, but all the people that you went to school with are looking in the past, it's not personal. It's just
Yeah.
logistical.
I just don't want to
It's
be around
you're
that.
moving forward and they're living in the past,
Yeah.
and it just is what it
Yeah.
is. It's
I
not.
don't.
I mean, if that's what they want to do,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting because when I'm hearing you talk, I'm hearing you say, you know, when you when you have this good family and you kind of go through this course of going to all these schools and then becoming the doctor, like what is in the minds of so many people, sort of I've arrived, right? It is easy to just say, okay, I'm a doctor now. I can coast for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And what I feel like you've said before is it's actually harder to want more from that because it's so comfortable as opposed to the guy who grew up in the broken home, who had dysfunctional mom and dad, who was on crack or wanting to shoot themselves or whatever, spent 10 years in prison. They have that brokenness, that's that negative energy that drives them. Whereas when you're in the situation you described, you really are comfortable, so it's super easy to just rest on your laurels in that regard. And then kind of what you were saying with regard to the people who are living in the past. I do think that there are some people who success comes too soon and too easily for them. So they are pretty outstanding in their athletic abilities or whatever. And so in grade school and middle school and senior high, they do overachieve and they win the high school state championship. And they're like, "Oh, great, I'm at the pinnacle," and so they try to stay there rather than um, go even further. And I think the reason being is it's somewhat easy. I mean, I didn't do it because I'm not the most athletic person in the world, but it's somewhat easy if you are sort of a natural athlete to excel in high school.
Mm.
But if you really have standards, going from high school to college, college to pro to the Hall of Fame, like that requires a level of commitment and a willingness to scale up your level of challenge that most people just don't have. So it's easier just to enjoy living in the dream of high school. So to me, what this comes down to, your commitment to continually sort of level up your standards comes back to this identity that was instilled in you very early, which is um, you're our son. We love you. Uh, your job is to be a man of your word. Your job is to have integrity, and your job is to work hard at school. So integrity and effort. And it seems like what I would say to anybody who says, "Well, I didn't have a parent or whatever," but like, don't overcomplicate this thing. Like what you said, start doing the decent things that you know you're supposed to do. But also, it really comes down to this: recognize on some level that you have value. Okay. I mean, if nobody loves you, then, I mean, at least from my standpoint, God loves you. So, okay, there you go. There's your value. Secondly, realize that your identity is forged in being a person of integrity. And thirdly, realize that your identity is tied to your effort and the 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 effort that you put into making something of yourself. I mean, is do you need more fundamentals than that?
No.
No?
I mean, think about it. Everything fits into those.
Right. So, as far as how that translates, I mean, those are the basic foundations, but in terms of how that translates into your leadership of Genesis, um, you you have talked a lot, and we've talked about this in other episodes, but I do think it's super important, bears repeating. Um, you know what you believe, and you have certain core values that you then chose as your companies. First of all, what are those core values? How are they an extension of your identity?
Mhm.
And how did you go about choosing these particular core values for Genesis?
So our current core values are we have a mnemonic, dig, so DIG, deep and act, ACT, with integrity. So dig deep and act with integrity. So it's determination, innovation, growth. Act is accountability, customer service, teamwork, and then integrity. So we
Mm.
have seven days of the week. You could use one every week. We talk about them as much as we possibly can. We came up with them first from stealing some of the first core values from
Mhm.
Andy, who
Mhm.
again, a mentor and somebody I looked up to, and I looked at his core values for supplement superstores, and I was like, we could use some of these, go the extra mile, and
Yeah.
some of these because there's a lot of times like integrity that should be a core value of every fucking business,
Right.
sort of thing. So easy things like that you can take customer service things because there's always going to be a couple core values. The rest of the core values really described Brent and myself and what we wanted for the business and how we acted ourselves. So our first core values were slightly different than our second iteration. As we got bigger, the second iteration of our core values came from the EOS model, Entrepreneur Organizational System. I read the book Traction by Gino Wickman. We sat down, and in that book, they say the way to really hammer out your core values is to get all your executives in a room, have them answer two questions. First question, name the one person who you think could run the business alone. Like,
Hmm.
because they're so amazing, you think that they could run the business alone. Okay, once you have that person's name two things about that person or two qualities about that person why you think that they could run the business. And those two qualities are core values, literally are.
Huh.
So they're going to be like, determination and hard work, or that customer service, or they go the extra mile, or they have accountability, or they always are helping out in teamwork. So we have about 13 executives, bring us 26 core values, added our own old core values to it. So we had 30 plus core values, started to combine the ones that were very close to each other, and just kind of narrowed it down and had this conversation with our executive team. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Is this truly what we think? And then we got it down to like 8 to 10. And then we really just voted. And we
Mhm.
said, like, essentially majority vote wins. Here's the 8 to 10 that we think are going to be our core values. And essentially there was like two or three that really only got like one or two
Mhm.
votes out of, you know, 13 or 14 executives plus there was like about 18 people in the room.
Mhm.
So those ones we just kind of eliminated because like one or two people have those core values, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really like a company core
So
value.
how many people were in that process, involved in that process?
I just said fucking 13.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
I
at the
totally
beginning of the
missed it.
story.
Huh?
There was like 13 executives in the room.
Oh, I missed the 13.
Jesus
See, 13
Christ.
is associated with demonism, so
Oh,
I
that's why
automatically
it automatically
filtered it out of
yeah,
my
filtered
brain.
it. 12
So
apostles, 13. No, you
yeah,
can't have
exactly.
13.
Yeah, no,
That's a
can't have 13.
gosh.
Okay, so my question is, I mean, did everybody have different answers or was it
No, that was just a thing. So when they had their answers, there was like, again, 26 answers
yeah.
plus our old core values. And we started to combine them because a lot of the answers were very close together. So we
Sorry,
went from,
I meant to say, sorry, let me clarify.
okay.
Was the same person repeated again and again? Or were there lots of different people that people said, yeah, they could run
Oh, I
this?
didn't care about that.
Oh, okay.
That's not
Okay.
the purpose.
That
No,
wasn't
I
the
don't
big
care
thing.
about
Okay.
like it wasn't the people thing because the people in
Okay.
the room are the right people anyway. So they all kind
Okay.
of some of them probably named each other. I don't know. I never asked that question. That question's
Okay.
not fucking important
Okay.
because in the end, you're just focusing on a person. Then like, oh, this person gets a lot of praise or whatever. That's not the purpose. The purpose is creating core values for your company,
Right.
everyone under that roof, not
Okay.
singling out a person at
Okay.
all.
I gotcha. I
Hmm.
gotcha. So then tell me, because I'm going back to what I originally talked about here with the person who doesn't know what to do with their life. And the reason that they don't know what to do with their life is that they don't know how to make decisions and they don't know how to deal with people who disagree with them. They don't know how to plant a flag and go forward with whatever that they feel like they're meant to do. They don't know how to do that because they don't know who they are and they don't know what they stand for. And so I guess my question is, um, how did I mean, you've heard this before. I've clients literally, well, to be frank, who when I first talk with them about the value, of core values, they'll be like, yeah, everybody talks about that. Like it's all corporate type stuff. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's the things that people talk about, but they don't actually do. And I think a lot of people are turned off to choosing core values because they have been part of a company where the core values are on the wall, but that's it. So tell me in practical terms, how does that help? How does that help to go through that whole process?
Habits are caught, not taught. So it's just like parenting. We talked about it. I work my ass off because I saw my dad work his ass off. Like I saw him waking up at 6 a.m. and coming home at 11 p.m. at night. I saw him at all of my sports games. I saw my mom taking us everywhere to during the day, to school, to band practice, to this sport, to that sport. I saw both my parents taking me to every single uh was it like fair or
Mhm.
you know field trip.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Mhm.
And every single field trip, they were a driver.
Mm.
I saw them do that. Habits are caught, they're not taught. So once you have those core values, once you describe those core values, then you live them every
Mhm.
single day. And you get better and better and better by living them and showing your team and showing your employees and showing your family what it means to live those core values.
Mhm.
And if you don't have any core values and you're starting from nothing and you don't have anything at all and you're not sure what you want to do, then they say fake it till you make it. And that's
Mhm.
not like Instagram fake it, go rent a Lamborghini and fucking show all these people that, oh, I'm this great person and sell fucking courses and steal and lie and cheat.
Right.
Integrity is still a part of your core values and always should be no matter what. It means that you emulate what you want to become. Like, if I
Mhm.
wanna be a billionaire, how I keep asking myself, how does a billionaire act in their day-to-day life? If I want to be extremely fit, how does somebody who is extremely fit going to act in their life? If I wanna be a
Mhm.
great dad or a great husband, how would a great dad or a great husband act? And then you
Mhm.
just act in that way, and after a while, it will become habit that you just naturally are a great dad, a great father, a great business owner,
Mhm.
because you see other people do it. There's plenty of great, great examples out there
Mhm.
that you can
Mhm.
follow, and even the people who turn out to be pieces of shit, they still on their way to being pieces of shit probably taught a lot of great things, a lot of great lessons. And again, as long as you take all their great lessons and you follow that integrity line where those
Mhm.
people that may turn out to
Mhm.
be pieces of shit crossed, and you never cross that line, but you do all the other things that they taught you up until that point to build a great business or build a great team or do a great, speech or whatever, then you're still going to be great. You're still going to be a great leader. That doesn't mean you're destined to be a piece of shit as well
Mhm.
because they make decisions. And again, everybody has that ability to make those decisions.
That's a really good point that I want to camp out on for a little bit is that the connection between identity and action. Because I do think that there are a lot of people of every age that are like, oh, I don't know who I am. Well, who do you want to be? Well, I want to be a good person. Okay, what do good people do? They're like you said earlier, they're kind to people. They hold the door. They don't, if they're a boss, they don't cheat their employees. If they're a spouse, they don't beat their wife or they don't, cheat on their husband. So do the things that the person that you want to be does. I have there's a mutual friend of ours who was part of the RTA syndicate who years ago, was a, very successful model, but by her own admission, she was kind of a train wreck as a person and not a good person. And she woke up one day and she was like, I I don't want to be this person anymore. Who have I become? And she had this very, very clear sense of, well, it's very simple. I'm going to do the things that the person that I want to be would do. And so she started thinking about what is that? Well, I get up early, I'd exercise, I'd eat right. Um, I would make it a point to be kind to people. I would work hard. I would stop going to these frivolous, worthless parties. And instead, I would invest my time in things that actually mattered and people who mattered. And so she just broke down who she wanted to be into these actions, like these literal critical tasks that over time began to shape her character. And I love what you're saying about like the connection between once you determine those core values for your company. Um, I'm assuming what you're saying is like whenever you see someone doing an action that somehow exemplifies that core value, you reinforce that or you reward that or
Yeah.
affirm it somehow. Is that
Yeah.
how it works?
Or even close to it. Like you want to reward people that are getting close to how you want them to act.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times as a boss, you'll always point out the negative, the negative, the negative, the negative, and you won't push up the positive. You won't say, "Hey, great job. Hey, you guys are doing awesome. Hey, you guys are killing it," and whatever,
Right.
and you don't build up your team at all at the same time. So even if they're getting close to how you want them to act, say, "Hey, that was great. You're almost there. That was good. Keep going in that direction. You're going to be great," and pushing them in that direction. And there's actual scientific proof that this works. Exactly what you're saying. It's not woo woo where it's like, "Oh, I'm going to act that way." There's actually a great book. It's actually called the Silva Mind Control Method, and
Hmm.
Dr. Silva studied this for years, studied all these different people that are almost like Renaissance people,
Hmm.
people that they have an amazing career and then ran for mayor and then were a Nobel Peace Prize laureate and then like a New York Times bestseller. And that's all, they did all these things in their life and at a very, very high level. And he studied them all. What he found out that a lot of those people when they went into their new life, if you will, or their new stage or what they were going to do, they just acted in their mind. They said,
Hmm.
how would this person act? How would this person do this? And they just
Hmm.
started to act that way. And people, I guess, could say, well, that's not being true to themselves and blah, blah, blah. But I guess, like, if you're always true to yourself and you never do anything, then you just end up being a piece of shit at the end of your
Hmm.
life that's done nothing.
Hmm.
You gotta act
Plus,
like
plus, what
different
does that
people in
even mean
different
to be
things.
true to yourself?
Yeah.
Like,
I have to
I,
act like I'm a doctor, but I have to act like a CEO to
right.
learn how to be a true CEO. If I didn't act
Yeah.
like somebody else I was always acting like a doctor, I couldn't run a successful business because doctors fucking don't know anything about business.
Most of
They
them, I
just
agree.
don't. They just
Yeah.
most of them is like 99.9%, even the ones that
Yeah.
have a business, you can make 7 figures a year in a medical business. It's not a difficult place
Hmm.
to make money in. But that being said, where I was going with that is there is actual scientific
Hmm.
proof that acting in those ways will actually lead to change and actually has, there are actual hand me that fucking book over there. It's called The Silva Mind Control Method.
It's interesting when you first said Silva mind control method. My thought, I guess, this speaks to how I'm oriented here, but I thought, wow, that's interesting. That sounds like controlling others, but it's really about controlling your own mind.
It's controlling
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
It's 100%
Yeah.
controlling yourself. So here, the Silva Mind Control Method, uh, you know, so founder of the world's most famous mind control course. And there are actual bunch of people that still teach the Silva mind control method in
Interesting.
courses all over
What were his dates?
the
When did he
country and
die?
stuff like that. When did he die?
Yeah. Like,
Oh,
what
I
is it?
have honestly no idea, but this was published originally. Let me look at this actually. This was published 1977.
Okay.
Yeah. You
Hmm.
know, marketing company used it to create 18 new products. 14 Chicago White Sox players used it to boost their scores. Vicky Carr, Carol Lawrence, Loretta Swit all used it. Those are all old performing
Right.
artists. Colleges and universities help their student body with it, and it's very interesting. It's a short little book. It's only like
Yeah.
I don't know 200 pages, but it's
Mhm.
tiny. But
Yeah.
there's actual data and
Yeah.
graphs in here proving that it works. Like
Interesting.
actual
Yeah.
science showing that essentially that when you act in a certain way or you want to be a certain person or do a certain thing, consistently acting in that way is
Hmm.
how you succeed. And Ed Milet talks about that, where he talks about coaching A Rod or talking with A Rod, who, obviously one of the greatest basketball. Yeah, that's how
Right.
much I
Right.
know about sports right there.
Right. Right.
Baseball players of all time
Yeah.
and visualization. And he would talk about, when the pitcher's hand or when the ball left the pitcher's hand, how he would visualize the rotation of the ball, how he would visualize him swinging before the pitcher even wound up. So he already had it in his mind what was going to happen and he
Hmm.
acted in that way to respond to that situation always. And again, you look at all these world class athletes, they visualize winning
Mhm.
hundreds of times before they even step onto the stage.
Mhm.
And those people that are on big stages, not only athletes, but business owners and entrepreneurs, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I saw this in my mind 100 times before I even got here."
Hmm.
And there are, again, more studies that show that when you have really vivid imagination and you really visualize, your body goes through the same chemical reactions as if you were
Mhm.
actually in or actually doing that.
Yeah, they
And one of
proved
the
that.
craziest
Yeah.
studies is that they did a study on weightlifting
Yep.
where, they had all these people actually lift weights, and then they had this other group of people just think about lifting weights and how heavy it was. And then they measured the muscle density. Obviously, the people that lifted weights increased muscle density a lot, but the people who sat there, did not do any exercise, and only visualized lifting weights, their muscle mass grew as well.
It's crazy.
That's crazy,
It
right?
is crazy. Now, not much, but it did
But it
grow.
did grow.
Yeah,
They
and
did
that yeah,
nothing. They
yeah,
sat there. That doesn't make sense.
yeah,
In it doesn't make sense.
right.
But that shows you how powerful the mind is, and
Yeah.
that visualization and acting in your mind and,
Well,
visualizing.
something that no, I absolutely and something to add to that is that so I was working with this guy years ago. He was a sports psychologist and he was, he worked with athletes and everything. And we were talking about, of all things, we were talking about the taste buds. And he was saying that that in his studies that he had learned that there really isn't such a thing as um you not liking certain kinds of food. Your taste buds will if you continue to eat the same kind of food. Um, I think you and I have talked about this, where you didn't like avocados or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
No, I didn't like avocados
But
when I was a kid. I love them
but
now.
actual studies that show that if you take something that you revile, like you kind of makes you revolt, and you consistently eat that, over time your taste buds will adjust to where most likely you'll like it. At the very least, you'll tolerate it. And his point was
Eat
that
more ass.
what's that? No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought that's where you were
His
going with this.
his point was a lot of the things that we don't think we are capable of, or we just don't have a taste for, we don't think are in our DNA that are necessary to become successful. He's like, that's just not how it works. The more you perform an action, the more your whole being kind of adjusts to it, like your taste buds adjusting to a food that you don't like. And the more you do it, the more it becomes something that kind of forms within you and you start embracing it. This is why, by the way, that Christianity, most of the religions would say, hey, don't get in the habit of doing bad things because you'll learn to love those bad things. And in loving those bad things, it will determine your destiny. Like you'll go down the wrong path in life. But the positive aspect of that is true too, which is why when if you're trying to figure out who am I, well, who do you want to be? Visualize who you want to be, and like to your point about the building the muscles, visualizing that will produce that on some level if it's then paired with taking actions that are consistent with the person that you want to be. And so it is, I mean, to some extent, I am a somewhat sympathetic person. I'm a former pastor. I try to meet people where they're at, but to some extent, it is a cop out to say, like, well, I don't know who I am and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Well, what kind of person do you want to be? I mean, this isn't rocket science. Do you want to be Hitler? No. Do you want to be Charles Manson? No. Who do you want to be? Like when it comes to uh, a powerfully impactful person, who do you want to be? They might say, well, okay, Oprah. Okay, in terms of a hardworking person, who do you want to be? Oh, The Rock. In terms of a person of integrity, who do you want to be? I don't know, Mother Teresa, right? Find out what those people do and do those things. And that's how, let me go back for a second. With your exercise of core values with your company, why didn't you just say, well, I'm very clear on what I believe and what I stand for. So I'm just going to pick these 7 things. And this is what my company is going to do because this is my company.
Yeah.
That would have been more efficient.
So we did at the beginning because it was just Brent and I and a
Okay.
few other employees, and it was
Okay.
they needed essentially guidance and they hadn't grown enough and become executives really in the company and leaders in the company and everything like that. But we really followed the EOS model, quite honestly.
Gotcha.
And the EOS model essentially said, for the first meeting, if you really want to do this right,
Yeah.
get these people in a room for two
And
days
how many
and
people was this again?
it was 13 people. Yeah, 13 people. There you go. The number 13. Lucky number 13.
I tried to deliver that line with a completely straight
Yeah,
face
yeah, yeah.
and to hear you go, "What the?"
Yeah, what the fuck? Back to this again? No, but the EOS model said, as you grow and as you expand, you need to ensure that the people in your company still live and breathe your core values because they might be a little bit off. Now, they're not going to
Okay.
be opposite. Like I said, we kept out of the 7 core values we have, and I think we had 8 core values before, 5 of them stayed the same. We just named it something a little bit different,
Mhm.
but they still fit in. There was 2 that were slightly different that we either I think 2 that we actually, like, left off and 1 that we added. So maybe 6 were the same. But they were
Yeah.
they were very,
Okay.
very close to each other. It wasn't anything different. It was just the way that it was described, the way that it was worded, because when your business is bigger and bigger and bigger, if people are only living your core values as the
Mhm.
leader, I guess that's good to a degree, but you gotta realize that you have all different types of people in your company,
Mhm.
and if you have strong core values and you've lived those core values and you have already, I don't wanna say push those core values, but exemplified those core values in your business to where they're solid, the people that you will have already attracted to your company and are in your company, when they redo your core values, like I said, 95% of them will be the same, but 1 or 2 will be slightly different, and all that does is add to the improvement of your company.
Mm.
But then at the same time, it gives them all ownership
Mm.
of your company, not equity-wise, but ownership in terms of it's aligned with their core values as well,
That makes
which
sense.
just makes it even more solid. And it might be things that you didn't know or you forgot of, or if every business owner only did what the fuck they wanted to do 100% and they never took opinions of anyone else that have good ideas or good
Mhm.
opinions or good thoughts, like great fucking businesses would not be built. Period.
Right.
They just
Right.
wouldn't be built.
So that's the EOS model. If you would have done what you just said, the dictator, it's all about me, that would be called the POS model.
Yeah, there you go. That was pretty good. Okay, cool. I'll get you a trophy for that one. Jesus.
Okay, so going back to the original, achievement kind of flows from identity, knowing who you are, knowing what you stand for, knowing your core values, knowing how you make decisions, um, knowing how you can. Well, yeah. Let me. This is the next thing I was going to ask. I think a lot of people, both in life in general and in business in particular, um, are paralyzed by not just indecisiveness, but they're paralyzed by the fear of not having other people's approval. How has having core values and having a strong sense of identity, both for yourself and your company, how has that helped you make tough decisions that weren't necessarily very popular, but in the end turned out to be right? Like how does that
Well,
how's that helped you?
the core values help really guide you. And I'll tell you, the greatest reason to have core values is exactly what we're talking about. It's a selfish thing for the owner to be able to fall back on. Because
Mm,
if you have core values that your team created with you, you are all responsible for them and you're all accountable for them, which is funny. That's one of our core values.
mhm,
And you're accountable to them. And anyone is in malalignment of that, then you can take all the emotion out of making that decision to fire that person or to uh, reprimand that person, or all the negative choices still fall into
mhm,
those core values. So, for example, innovation is one of our core values. And through that, because It's one of our core values. We've had to change a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is the way that we see clients, the way we book clients, the electronic medical record, the way we market, the way we flow, it's consistently changing.
Mm.
And it used to change every month because we were trying to get it better and better and better. And now it's gotten pretty good, not great, but pretty good to where we change things maybe once a quarter and we kind of see how they settle, but we still have change. And the staff, a lot of times, fucking hates it
Mhm.
and they'll gripe and there's like, oh man, we got to do this again and learn this new system or do it this way. But we know it's the right thing because innovation is one of our core values.
Right.
So it's like, look, we are innovating. And some of the things that we're doing in Genesis have not been built yet the way that we need them to work in our system. That could be a way of ordering things or an electronic system or something that this system is a good base and we have to
Mhm.
reprogram some of it.
Mhm.
So we are innovating a lot of things in our specific field in our clinics, which means you're experimenting a
Mhm.
fucking lot. And your
Mhm.
staff hates experimenting because you don't know what the future holds. You're just kind of
Mhm.
like fucking flying blind through the asteroid field, and you're like, ah, if we hit a fucking asteroid, we might fucking die.
Right.
But that being said, along with that, again, it's you can remove yourself emotionally from those and say, look, guys, this is part of our core values. We have to innovate. We have to grow. You've seen based off us innovating before that it's
Mhm.
always been good,
So
or
you're basically
our
saying
intention's always
all
good.
this change that's happening, this isn't chaos. This is according to plan.
Yeah.
This is what I mean, it might be chaos, but it's controlled chaos, right?
Yes. Controlled
And that
chaos.
makes sense. And
And
it
but
gives
again,
people a
it
framework to interpret things.
exactly. But then it goes back to the core values again. Like if I have to fire somebody because
Mhm.
they were in violation of the core values, hey,
Mhm.
the core values are there. You got 3 write-ups going against the core values. You may be an amazing person. I might really like you as a person, as a human being. But again, as a selfish thing, as an owner who hates fucking firing people, I
Mhm.
fucking hate it.
Mhm.
That's why I don't do it anymore. Like, I
Yeah.
put that on HR or the
Yeah.
clinic directors to do it because I'm fucking selfish and I'm a
Mhm.
weakling and I fucking hate firing people.
Mm.
It's just
Mm.
terrible. I feel like I let them down and fucking crawl into a hole and want to die.
Well, it's a good sign of good leadership because I mean, as Andy always says, to some extent, firing is a failure on your part
Yeah, it
too.
is
Yeah.
100% because you failed
Yeah.
that person. But I think it's helps me rethink that and say, okay, well, they might be a great person,
Right.
but the core values that the company created, not just me, the company created, that person isn't living up to the rest of the employees' expectations,
Right.
the rest of the employees' core values, their teammates' core values and expectations. So
Yeah.
therefore, they don't belong here.
Yeah.
They might go somewhere else where they have different core values, but with these core values, they don't belong here. So it
Mhm.
helps making those decisions as well and taking a third party approach where you can remove all the emotion from those decisions,
Mhm.
which some people will be like, well, it's an emotionless decision. Look, motherfucker, when you have hundreds of fucking employees, you can come
Yeah.
at me and say that's an emotionless decision because
Right.
you're going to have to make emotionless
Right.
decisions at that point.
Because otherwise, you're going to be emotionally overwhelmed
Yeah. Otherwise,
24/7.
you want to fucking throw yourself into traffic,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. So, most religions, Christianity is certainly one of them, have some sort of core virtues. Like I'm Catholic, so there's virtues like temperance, prudence, stuff like that. Okay, but even among those virtues, there's like the cardinal virtues, the faith, hope, and love. And love is like the number one most important virtue. Have you found that regardless of um, the industry, the nature of the business, there's one cardinal core value that really, well, both in your experience in business, but also something you would recommend to other businesses? If there's one thing that you continues to come back again and again that kind of drives all the others, what is it?
I think it's the last one that sits alone, integrity.
Okay. So just always
Yeah.
doing the right thing.
Integrity.
Yeah.
Integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it is like always doing the right thing, whether that is um yeah, it comes back to that because
Mhm.
no matter what, people are going to talk about your business, good or bad. People are
Mhm.
going to talk about your business. Uh, you got a great service. I mean, everything I think comes back to integrity. You could literally put all the core values inside, I think, integrity if
Mhm.
you really want to argue that.
Mhm.
Uh, Customer service, like that's having integrity, I feel.
Mhm.
A great product. You're not selling a piece of shit. If you're selling a piece of shit, again, that how is that
Right.
having integrity? You know, doing the right thing for the client. That's having integrity. Like owning your mistakes, the accountability of it. That's essentially having integrity.
Mhm.
Like accountability for your own actions. I don't know. Did I ever say a fucking accountability? I have no idea. But accountability,
Yeah.
like you are accountable for what you do. I believe that's still within integrity.
Mhm.
Maybe innovation, I guess, is not really integrous. Is that a word?
Actually, I
Felt
I
like
think
that was famous.
innovation is integrity because innovation is change for improvement. And if you don't
Mm,
want to get better, if you just want to stick with the status quo, you're not really concerned about providing value to
yeah.
people. That's where I would look at it.
And growth in our company doesn't just mean growth of the company. It means like personal growth as
Mhm.
well. That's why we do a lot of personal growth talks and suggest personal growth books and stuff, which I believe is also part of
Yeah.
integrity, making to yourself,
Yeah.
improving yourself so that you can serve others better.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one really is overarching. If you sell shitty products or bunk products, you're gonna get found out.
Yeah.
Whether it might not be by a client, it might be by the medical board,
Right.
but that's still not having integrity. If you could stand in front of the medical board and your clients and your staff and say, "Throughout all this, I've had the utmost integrity,"
Mhm.
there none of them are gonna fault you for anything. They just
Right.
won't.
Right. No, I mean, and on that note, integrity, doing the right thing, often involves the recognition that, "Ooh, in that case, we didn't do the right thing, and we need
Yeah.
to make it right."
Yeah,
We
and
did the wrong thing, but we need to
it's
correct
gonna
it.
be a lot fucking slower to build a business that way. A lot slower. Because if I didn't have integrity, I could buy medications and Botox and lower my cost of goods from China or India or Thailand and import them in for like 1/10 of the cost, give them to a bunch of clients and make, 90% more money
Mhm.
a lot faster.
Right.
But then I would probably hurt a lot more people. I could cause a lot more side effects, to cause a lot more issues. And as a result of that, we've seen that in the news. The Botox this year killed
Mhm.
a whole bunch of people because people were importing it from China.
Ugh.
Like a lot of our, I wouldn't say colleagues, but people in my field that own clinics are using like research uh level drugs. I mean, research level drugs mean you shouldn't be using them in humans.
Right.
So research level drugs, and they buy these, they buy Botox and fillers from Canada or from Mexico and have it shipped in, which is illegal. It
Mhm.
might be the quote unquote same shit, but you a lot of times don't know what's in those things or what's allowed or what's not,
Yeah.
and it causes a lot of harm. But you
Mhm.
make a lot more money. But
Yeah.
again, integrity. At some point,
Yeah.
you're either gonna get found out, or if you never get found out, okay, good for you, but I
Yeah.
just refuse to build a business that
Yeah.
way.
For sure. Well, since I'm subbing for Amanda, I'll take her place when I say that a lot of the stuff we're talking about, you actually cover in your courses for free. And so if you are an entrepreneur, but specifically if you're a medical entrepreneur like Alex, someone in the medical and aesthetic space, whether you're I don't know chiropractor, med spa owner, uh, what cosmetologist, weight loss coach, really anything, you can go to dralexspinosa.com. Is it / courses? Is that just what it is? I mean, it's
Um,
pretty easy to find once
yeah,
you get to Alex Spinoso.
yeah,
And then, of course, if you get on the newsletter, which goes out on a regular basis, you don't always you don't just get notifications of new podcast episodes, but you'll also have some uh, some heads up on exclusive opportunities and resources and that kind of thing. And you and I are working on one that it's going to come out pretty soon. I mean, let's just say it.
yeah,
You want to say it? Yeah, we're
yeah,
we're working on a book. We're actually technically done with the book.
we are.
We're not going to tell you what it's about, but it's very relevant to anyone who is a entrepreneur or professional, really, of
Yeah,
any kind. who wants to
I'm very excited about that.
yeah,
That's gonna
me
be
too.
awesome.
So that's the first time I have publicly said anything.
And along with
Um,
with the book, we're working on a group as well.
yeah, for sure. So get on the newsletter and you'll hear about that kind of stuff, and it's going to be exciting. But Alex, final word on this issue of knowing who you are, knowing your core values, knowing your, what you stand for and the value of that for both individuals and businesses.
I think you never know what you're capable of or who you want to be until you start doing it. When I started in my career, I wanted to be a doctor because I had a great doctor when I was younger who performed knee surgery on me, and I wanted to give that back to others. I wanted to be a doctor. And then going through it, I realized that this fucking sucks. And then I found the business world and entrepreneurship world. And I was like, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. This is great. And so when I started my business, I wanted to build an urgent care, and that turned out that was a bad idea because urgent cares just were really expensive. I couldn't do it. So that's what, I met Brent and we built the medical clinic that turns into what Genesis is. And you'll never, whatever plan that you make will never turn out exactly how you envision it to at all. So just roll with the punches, take the first step, listen to those little whispers and those open doors that provide you more opportunity, and just run in that direction, because I didn't realize I would be here with 78, about to be 80 plus locations for Genesis, multi-billion dollar corporation with Accesso that's going to be valued extremely high, and those other opportunities with triplets and amazing wife and a newborn. But I took that first step and
Mm.
just said, let's go. You're going to fail a lot, but so does everybody else.